Hey guys, Purple Havarti here. Now here's a UK band that I haven't heard much talk about in so long, but had a breakthrough hit in the US and countless of success in the UK, and that's Ferdinand. No, not that one. But of course, the band. So what happened to Franz Ferdinand? Franz Ferdinand are a band from Scotland, Glasgow to be exact, made up of band members Alex, lead vocalist, Nick on rhythm guitar, Bob on bass, and Paul on drums. This is the original lineup of the band. All the members played in various bands and eventually came together around 2001. That year, they would name themselves Franz Ferdinand, and thought it would be cool if the world, when thinking of Franz Ferdinand, wouldn't think of Archdutch Franz Ferdinand but a rock band. They also thought the name was pretty cool, which I can agree with them that it does sound amazing. They would play their first gig in their friend's bedroom. That's just an awesome way to start a career. Starting it in a friend's bedroom is so indie and humble. They would then go on tour with Hot Heat and Interpol, two bands that had some steam, and they would be building up some hype. An enemy editor would stumble on their demo, Darts of Pleasure, and would go ape-poop crazy. Trust me when I say this, but Enemy would/does this often with many bands. Well, many UK bands. 2 years after the bedroom gig, sometime in May of 2003, the band was signed to indie fame label Domino Recording Company, and the band was set to record their debut album with producer Tor Johnson. 2003 was a great time to be in a post-punk revival band. Bands like The Strokes, Interpol, and Yeah Yeah Yeahs had already seen commercial success at this time, so I'm sure most indie labels in the UK were trying to scoop up the next big thing that had that similar sound. But what made Franz different from these New York bands? Well, with those bands, most of the crowds would be watching or pogo sticking on some songs. Franz would lean heavy into dance punk, something these bands weren't doing at the time. Many people who were at or got to see those early Franz shows would always talk about how they had the crowd dancing, not staring or pogo sticking. Darts of Pleasure would be the first single off the debut album, Franz Ferdinand, and critics loved it. They even had John Peel, DJ of BBC Radio 1, calling them the saviors of rock and roll, which, to be honest, was an over-exaggeration. Rock was doing really good at this time compared to now. I mean, let's be honest. But it got the hype super high for the debut. Franz Ferdinand would debut at number 3 on the UK charts and peak at 32 across the pond in the US. Those are the only two countries that matter. I'm just joking. It was nominated for a Grammy and won the Mercury Music Prize. It has since sold more than 3 million copies worldwide. The big song off this record would be Take Me Out. This song is and will always be a staple in the post-punk revival movement. It was every indie kid's anthem at that time. On making that song, Alex said the verses sounded better when they played fast, and the chorus sounded better when they would play it slow. There were no studio tricks when making the song. They took the best takes and placed them together to get the song we know and love today. The album as a whole is great and will get anyone dancing. It's a strong project and got a 9.1 out of 10 from Pitchfork and a 9 out of 10 from Enemy. It's brilliant. You could have it so much better. So, how can you follow up such a great album? It's so hard, but Franz decided one long year of touring later that they were ready to release their second album. And why not strike when the iron is hot? This album would have a similar sound to their debut, and a lot of people weren't mad at it. The critics liked it, and it would be the band's first #1 album in the UK, and would even go gold in the US. I can vividly remember my brother really loving the song Do You Want To? And so did I. It's a bop, catchy, and you can dance to it non-stop. Once again, Franz was leaning heavily on dance punk and art rock to be the sound that set them apart from everyone else. Pitchfork gave it an 8.3 out of 10, and Enemy sticking with a 9 out of 10. Still a very solid album in everyone's eyes. Tonight would come a whole 4 years later of You Could Have It So Much Better. The band had written 8 songs while on tour in 2005, but they wanted their third album to sound different, to be fresh and unique to their catalog. Plus, they were all tired of touring so much and wanted to live their life and enjoy it. So, the band did not announce that they were in hiatus. They would start to work on the album in 2007. One of the singles, Ulysses, would be released on their MySpace music profile to build up the hype to their album. 2009 was very interesting. MySpace was still the big website. I don't think Facebook had overtook MySpace just yet, and a boatload of people would get on MySpace at the time. Shout out to Tom. If you know, you know. This marketing tactic worked and made the song peak at number 20 in the UK singles charts. The album would be released soon after and would chart number 2 in the UK and number 9 in the US. Some critics loved the album, saying it was their best work yet and an evolutionary step forward for the band. But some critics weren't so stoked, with one saying, "They'll keep trying to move your hips because they know they'll never win your heart." Such a hard burn. I think I'd need an ice pack after somebody told me that. On this album, the band would change their style, adding elements of electronic pop, art rock, and new wave. The drum grooves on the album were a bit different also, because Paul, the drummer of the band, was listening to a lot of African music, which has a different swing than Western music. Pitchfork would finally rate one of their projects under 8, giving it a 7.3 out of 10. And even Enemy couldn't give the album anything higher than an 8 out of 10. The band would release 2 albums after this and add 2 new members, Julian and Dino. But I'm not here to talk about those projects or the new additions, because to me, the Tonight era is what answers the question to this video. The band was gassed out after putting together 2 back-to-back albums and touring their tails off thanks to those 2 albums. They had all the hype in the world at that time and the right sound to take it and make it theirs, but they wanted something else. They wanted a new sound, and they wanted to spend time outside of touring and just living their lives. And during these 4 years off of releasing new music, times had changed. The internet was getting bigger, and bands came to replace them and add their own mark to the indie scene that was once theirs. And yes, they tried to adapt by promoting their song through MySpace, but it didn't feel authentic like other bands, such as Arctic Monkeys, Owl City, or Lily Allen. This promoting style would have been strong in 2007, but the band was 2 years too late. The market was saturated. The band also tried a new sound, which I like a lot, but it's hard to get fans to like that new sound without a big label pushing, and they were still signed to indie label Domino. Yes, people at this time were rooting for indie bands, but making fans wait 4 years for a new project was like committing career suicide. Adding all the elements I mentioned before, then you're pretty much doomed from getting back to the same hype you had for the first 2 albums. With all that being said, Franz is still making music till this day, and hope they are enjoying the music they're making. So I can say we answered the question, what happened to Franz Ferdinand? If you haven't heard Franz Ferdinand, please check out their first album. But I'm sure most of you watching this have heard of them and know how beautiful that piece of art is.